Welcome in, everybody, to this episode of Discard for Magic. I am one of your hosts, Aaron.
And I'm the other host, James or Jexic, and today we're very happy to bring on Magnifico and talking about the Obsidian Dwarves.
Hey guys.
So, Magnifico, why don't you just start out and give us a little bit about your introduction to Summoner Wars?
Okay, sure. I used to play a lot of board games, including Summoner Wars First Edition was one of the board games I played on rotation. Nowadays, I pretty much just play Summoner Wars Second Edition. It kind of stole my attention from all the other games I used to play. But yeah, I always loved dueling games, asymmetrical games where you pick a faction, pick a character. So pretty much anytime I saw a game like that, I wanted to check it out. Summoner Wars First Edition was one of the first of those I found. Yeah, I just played it kind of casually at home. Didn't get too deep into it. There's a lot of things I loved about it, but at the same time, it seemed a little bit unpolished to me. So when I saw the second edition, it sounded right up my alley, and yeah, it's my favorite game now.
Which factions did you like to play in First Edition?
Oh God, I probably played each one once, honestly, but until I found Rising Phoenix, and then I really actually stuck with them for a while. So Rising Phoenix is the only one I kind of kept playing. Other than that, it was kind of just experimentation because I got the whole box and I had every faction, but I didn't have a whole lot of plays. So I probably played each faction once, other than Rising Phoenix, which I really liked. I think that's what they were called, right?
Or maybe the Fallen Phoenix? Was that the one that Prince Alien could change the dice rolls?
Yeah, exactly. Fallen Phoenix, the undead and Phoenix Elves hybrid.
Man, I did not like that one at all. We have different tastes. I was I didn't like the Drake in that one. The original Fire Drake's so strong, and the Hellfire Drake is I feel not as good. When you started playing Second Edition, did you start playing online? Did you buy it in person first? How did that come about?
Around the same time, I ordered it in person. If I remember correctly, my box hadn't come in yet, so I did try it online. I tried I'd read some of the preview articles. I tried Breakers versus Goblins or whatever. I kind of just dabbled in it a bit. I didn't really find a faction that clicked with me that much until the starter set came out, though.
Yeah, with the Tundra Orcs. I mean, you've probably played more Tundra Orcs than a lot of players have played the game, I think. Right?
Yeah, I really like Tundra Orcs.
But what made you switch to the Obsidian Dwarves? Because that kind of it seemed like once they came out, you just kind of left the Tundra Orcs behind.
Whenever I find a new game, I like to delve deep into one faction or character because I kind of I really like playing kind of loosely and fast, but I still want to play good. But I don't want to take too much time on my turns and all of that. So I like to really just learn one faction, learn all the matchups, and so I kind of just try every faction a little bit until I find someone who clicks with me. And then once I find the first one that clicks with me, then I'll just delve deep. That's kind of how I approach these kind of games in general. So Tundra Orcs had pretty much everything I liked, so it was easy to just play them over and over. And that's what really impressed me about Summoner Wars. I was how many times am I playing these guys? And I was still learning every game. I was still having a lot of fun every game. I was having more fun each game. So I was this game is really deep because I'm getting all this gameplay value out of just one faction. And how many are there going to be? 3 million? So that just made me really excited for what was to come. So I always kind of had my eyes and ears open for a new faction just to mix it up. I didn't really need to mix it up. I was still having fun with Tundra Orcs, but when I saw the previews for the Obsidian Dwarves, I mean, even the combination of the symbols, by that time I'd come to understand the symbols pretty well, and Fire and Instinct really seemed like a combination I would like. When I read the previews, I don't know, they just seemed simple and fun. I like the simplicity of their gameplay, the Obsidian Dwarves. But also just how exciting everything is and just how well designed it is. And I was excited to give them a try, and it didn't disappoint. So I just started playing them, and I liked them more than the Tundra Orcs. It wasn't too complicated of a decision. Honestly, I got addicted to the Obsidian Dwarves. I would lay awake, thinking about Obsidian Dwarves strategies and stuff, and want to jump back into another game. So it was kind of just easy to switch over. It wasn't really an intentional thing. It just kind of happened.
Yeah, your Obsidian Dwarves are definitely something to be feared or not taken lightly. I mean, you've played them in some tournaments, and I've terrorized the open queue with them. I've matched up with you a ton, and some of the epic battles we've had, a lot of between Fungal Dwarves and Obsidian Dwarves. have just been crazy going back and forth.
Oh yeah, you reminded me of something else. Some of the matchups I started not to like with Tundra Orcs, Obsidian Dwarves, I like them a lot more. So like Obsidian Dwarves against Fungal Dwarves, for instance. Like I really hated playing against the Fungal Dwarves when I was playing as Tundra Orcs, but the Obsidian Dwarves matchup is really fun. I think with Fungal Dwarves, I really like the dynamics there. So I just was having even more fun with the game with Obsidian Dwarves, and yeah, the Fungal Dwarves was a big part of that actually. I liked that the Obsidian Dwarves were better matched against them, but also the game I just found more interesting.
You heard it here first. If you want to have fun with Summoner Wars, you play against the Fungal Dwarves. That's all I got from that. We're gonna call it right here.
It's fun when I've matched up with you a few times. I mean, not a few times, a bunch of times at this point. But it seems like you're like one of a handful of players that will just take their turns really quickly, and I am too. So I don't know, we knocked through like 3 or 4 the other day, but we've done that a few times I think where we just get matched up, and then with the Obsidian Dwarves, like the games aren't that many turns either. It just kind of runs a little hot. And I've had a game I think I was playing against your Grox the other day, and I was like, this is weird. I'm the Obsidian Dwarves playing against Magnifico.
Oh yeah, that was funny. That was a fun game. 1 HP battle.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, he got me down to 1. And I had I might if I had any other hand, but I had 4 Ember Demons and a Chains, and I had 1 boost on my summoner, so there's no way I was gonna get to him. I was like, well, I guess I can try this Devura attack, but I counted it out. I was like, I'm not gonna kill him, but I gave it a shot.
Yeah, I was already packing it up. Anytime I get a summoner to 1 HP, I assume I'm gonna die.
Well, what are some key tips you could give people who are just starting out playing Obsidian Dwarves?
Embrace risk, really. That's like the overall thing that kind of seeps into everything else about them. You really have to be comfortable with taking risks, even when the odds are like against you, at least slightly. You have to realize that you have to make big plays to win. If you don't go for big plays, it's probably not going to happen.
So you're saying you don't sit there and plan for the long game, and just try to take your opportunities as they come as best you can.
You want to keep damage off of Balzar. Other players kind of know that, so they're definitely going to be trying to put damage on Balzar. So you generally want to keep damage off Balzar. Your champions are really good. Your commons are mostly there for support. Balzar is the centerpiece, and you're going to win the game probably with Volcanic Blasts, with your champions.
Yeah, speaking of their champions are fairly unique. So you got Volcar, you got the Hellforge, and you got Devura. Do you tend to try and play like 1 or 2? Do you try and play all 3? How do you approach their champions?
In most matchups, 2 for sure. Unless you expect a really fast game, then I would go for 1. That can be worth it sometimes. Their champions are game winners. They tend to be like game winners. If I think the game is going really fast, then I might discard 2 champions. But if it's going to be a little bit of a slower game, then I definitely go for 2 champions. Against some factions like Fallen Kingdom or Fungal Dwarves, 3 maybe, but generally 2, I'd say.
So out of them, which do you prioritize the most, or is it just kind of depend on which you end up drawing?
Devura is definitely the MVP. She's pretty much always good unless the game's gotten to the point where I'm probably not going to be using Balzar that much. It's definitely like a plan B type of game, but Devura is I'm never not happy to have Devura.
Yeah, so like her ability to give Balzar a second attack is really useful, and it allows you to get the boost back up and everything, just generating that again, right?
Yeah, for sure. She's most in line with their plan A, so she'll help you get extra boost. She helps you get extra damage in. She has that range poke, which can actually be really helpful with them. She stays out of volcanic blast range. Like she's a good supporting attack character, but then she also just all of her abilities are there to support Balzar, and they do that. And the deck's about Balzar, so she ends up being really good.
In what situations do you find Volcor is good? Because I mean, his ability to get up to 5, 6, 7 attack is really good against those factions that have like big commons, I guess. Or what do you think?
I like him in general, honestly. If he gets his boosts, I like him in general. But yeah, definitely some factions like let's say Fungal Dwarves, since Aaron's here, sure. I love Volcor there. Probably for the reasons you said. I haven't thought about it too much, honestly. Like like I said earlier, I kind of like to just play a lot and kind of internalize things and play kind of instinctually and quickly. So, but if I have to think about it, then I like Volcor anytime I can get his stats up. So to me, it has more to do with that than like the specific matchup. And a lot of
Mhm.
that will just have to do with the board state at the time I draw him, and then also just my hand, and like the stage of the game. Another consideration is just how many boosts that Balzar has, and if I'm going to be able to attack with Balzar over the next couple turns, because you really, full core, you really need to like get him going quickly. I think I'm not really a fan of like hiding him and trying to bring him into play later or anything like that.
Right. You're spending 6 magic, you got to get that investment out, and it's like so you either need to have Balzar maybe on lower boosts when you get Volcor out, so you can actually get the boost back up, or have a willpower or an Oathsworn also to boost Volcor, or else he's not going to really hit his stride right away.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things I'll look at making the decision to play Volcor. Like, I'm not going to go so far as to say I'd like prefer to have less boosts, but I mean, I love to have like a lot of boosts and what's that card called? The
Willpower.
willpower. Yeah, I love to have that combination even, but there has to be like some kind of bed made for Volcor to come out. I think for me to make that decision to pull the trigger confidently, unless it's like a desperation game. If I'm behind, then he's kind of like something that can swing it. So even if the odds are really low, I might just put him out in that case if I'm behind, and then just hope that I roll well enough to boost him quickly.
I guess the third champion is the Hellforge, who just allows you to get your weapons back and stuff. But he's the cheapest champion at 3 cost. What situations do you find yourself using the Hellforge in?
It's more niche. It's a game. It can be a game winner for sure though. So I definitely look for any opportunity it could help me win a game. Usually if I do play it, what I'm gonna like to do is have it's usually going to be some kind of opportunity to get like an axe and a chain on the same guy, which can often be a game winner in combination with other Obsidian Dwarf stuff. But really, it gives a lot of flexibility. I play it the least of the champions, but it's definitely not like an easy decision to discard it. I don't think. I think it is the 3 cost. I think it's easy to underrate the cost. Like at first, I think I was playing it too much. It seems efficient because you can like discard the weapons, get the magic back, yada yada. A lot of times that 3 magic it slows the Obsidian Dwarves down too much from their plan A. So it's the champion I'll discard the most because Obsidian Dwarves aren't too terribly much about efficiency.
Should we get into their commons then? Like, how often do you play all their commons or discard them?
The big guys, the berserkers, they often need weapons for me to want to play them. Not always, but they're basically like I look at them in conjunction with the weapons. They're good in that case. The Bloodsworn, they're once again they're in line with the plan A, so I'll probably summon all of them. They're cheap. They hit okay, and they do what you want to do. So those guys are good. The guards are kind of like a key part of the deck. Keep damage off Balzar. They can help protect him after Volcanic Blast. Get extra damage in on the summoners, stuff like that. They work really amazingly with the Hellforged weapons. Like you can, like with a guard, if you like hide it in the back or whatever, you can often get like 2 attacks with the Hellforge axe, which most other units won't get to do. Maybe a berserker if you get lucky. Yeah, I would say the guards and the sworn are the like meat and potatoes of the commons, and then the demons they can be like a third win condition if you like save up a chain or like at least like a guard and demon and a weapon or a hellforge. My inclination is to discard the berserkers and the demons, but play them when it makes sense to do so. And that situation isn't terribly rare.
Yeah, sometimes it'll be the way to win, like you're saying, because you could summon off of an Ember Guard or something and surprise your opponent with a chain or axe or both, right?
Yeah, or just pick off like an annoying unit that you couldn't reach otherwise. And in that case, the demons are okay. And I mean, if you're using Volcor, it makes this boost spending a little bit less of a cost. Just it's still not ideal, but like it makes it slightly easier to boost Volcor, which can be kind of cool. Sometimes I'll damage myself if I think the game is accelerating toward an end. Rather than spend my boosts, I like to keep like a critical level of boosts to be threatening. You really don't want Balzar to just be like up there with like without being too threatening. So yeah, that like the boost cost of the demons is really a big consideration. I think it's easy to underrate like how much they cost. So by default, I would say for like a newer player, you want to discard a lot of berserkers and demons for sure. That's going to also give you magic to play your champions, which tend to be better.
Longest chain you've had of Ember Demons? Have you ever gotten like a 4?
I've definitely gotten a 3 more than once, so that feels like as good as a 4. But I can't remember ever getting a 4. I probably remember it, right? I feel like that's not something I would forget. So
Yeah.
I would say hopefully in the future though.
People often call Balzar like a slot machine. Like you're gambling if you're gonna get hot or get cold based off how many boosts you roll. Well, how do you feel about the games? Because I'm sure you've had them where Balzar just isn't gaining boosts. What do you offer to players then?
I mean, it sucks, but it's still Summoner Wars. Your opponent might roll like 0 hits on a melee next turn, and you still have a game to play. It's good to have contingency plans where possible, but really I think in general with Obsidian Dwarves, you kind of want to be optimistic. Like even if things can go wrong, you kind of want to assume they're not going to. Because yeah, you need to take those opportunities, as I said earlier, and make big plays. So yeah, it just happens just a little bit more often than it does anyway in Summoner Wars. You can win games where you lose all your boosts. To me, it's not terribly different from Summoner Wars in general, but definitely they're a bit of a slot machine. Not even just Balzar, like every component of them has some kind of gambling element to it, pretty much. Yeah, it's fair criticism. Someone doesn't like that, and honestly, there isn't too much to say about it offhand that I can think of. I really think their risk is interesting, and it's one of the things I like about them. So I don't have too much advice to go around it. Just like play more games.
Like you said, just embrace it and be willing to just play another game after when it doesn't go your way, right?
Yeah, in the games where it doesn't go your way and you end up winning anyway because something even more fucked up happened to the opponent. Yeah, those can be some of my favorite games where it seemed like I was getting really unlucky, and then like they can have one awesome turn and be back in it. Like especially when you get like willpower or something, you can increase your boosts really quickly. So I don't remember feeling like, oh, I'm out of the game just because something bad happened early. Like, yeah, it's an uphill battle. That can happen anyway with any faction, whatever.
Yeah, like you said, all it takes is one turn with willpower, and you can get 3 boosts pretty easily.
Yeah, even more with Devora or Osorn.
If anybody hasn't played against you before, they might not know this, but you tend to play very aggressively. Do you think that lends itself best to Obsidian Dwarves? Do you think there's like a play style that they can play more passive?
No, you're basically trying to corner and kill the opponent's summoner. That's your plan A, B, C. And they might have like I called it plan B and C earlier, but those are probably more like plan D's and E. Really, yeah, they're an aggressive faction for sure, but the way they're aggressive is really interesting to me. I mean, opponents who have played a lot of against Sitting Doors a lot will kind of know the ranges and kind of play a keep away game with you, and it makes a really interesting dynamic. You're really trying to limit their movements where they can't really run away in a way that's conducive to their strategy. So they're an aggressive faction, but not just in like a go in guns blazing kind of way. It's like they have to kind of pace their aggression just so while not slowing the game down that much. So definitely an aggressive faction, but in a cool way.
For a brand new player starting with Obsidian Dwarves and who wants like an easier matchup, who do you recommend that they play against? Like, what are some of Obsidian Dwarves' best matchups?
I think the best one is probably like Vanguards. It might just be because Vanguards kind of suck, but rather than like a specific matchup interaction. But like Vanguards, Phoenix Elves is a pretty fun one. It feels maybe slightly Obsidian Doors favorite. I'm not sure. It might be even. I don't know. But that's one I've played a lot. That's fun, and I would recommend. Yeah, Cloaks even. That's like a normally stronger faction that I feel Obsidian Doors matches up pretty well against. Those are kind of like the first 3 to come to mind as faction. If I remember correctly, like those are some of my best win rates, and then my like memory doesn't disagree. Like my game sense is that those are pretty decent matchups that are fun. Cloaks, Phoenix Elves, Vanguards.
I don't even know who is favored, but like the Wayfarers matchup's always interesting too. I think it's got like an interesting dynamic.
By very fast pace.
I actually play that one slower. So that's like a. I mean, I don't think that's the only way to play it. Like I think I have seen some other people say they kind of like throw stuff at each other and a summoner dies. But to me, like if I'm playing against Wayfarers, I know I'm going to win the game if I don't die. So I kind of just play tower defense, even as Obsidian Dwarves. So that's kind of a matchup where I do take them the other way, and I'm not as aggressive. I'm not very aggressive. Like if they give me an opportunity, sure I'll kill their summoner, but I'm not going to try to do that. I feel like their damage is kind of more reliable than mine. I'd rather just wait it out because that's a more surefire way to win.
That's kind of what I found with the Wayfarers. If I just went at the OD, I'd probably lose because like I would just hit him for like 8, but then I just get volcanic blasted or something back and just die. So I was like, I'd have to chip at him before I try to go for a kill and just try to like chip with rogues or other things. It was interesting dynamic though. I like that matchup.
Yeah, I think Wayfarers I had a lot of success against too. That's like, yeah, I kind of just cheese them out though. Honestly, that's kind of what I do against Wayfarers in general. If any faction.
Some common mistakes you see people making with Obsidian Dwarves.
Well, you have to remember there's no mirror matches, so
He hasn't played against the Obsidian Dwarves as much as most of us.
That's true. You've probably barely played against Obsidian Dwarves.
I quit Tundra Orcs and then I played Obsidian Dwarves, and now I just started playing Deepwood Groaks. So this is kind of like the most I've played against Obsidian Dwarves. Oh yeah, I played Mountain Vargoth for some time too, but I'm kind of done with them. It's kind of just been interesting to me to see how people played them differently. If I had to imagine like some imaginary new player, or even just putting myself in my shoes in the past, a common mistake might just be like I said, like not taking risks, like maybe seeing like maybe this thing has a 40% chance of putting me ahead, but 60% chance of going miserably. Sometimes you just have to think of the overall game arc and realize that if you take that like safer thing, you're probably going to lose anyway, depending on how the game is going. So you always have to be aware of the overall tempo of the game, and that's usually going to lead you to taking more risks. So I would say that's probably like a easy thing to do as Obsidian Dwarves. Not be optimistic enough, not take those slightly lower odds for huge payoffs. Yeah, it's just really a risk reward game. It's not just like a stat calculation, like I want to do the safe thing, I want to do the more efficient thing. No, you have to really go for big rewards.
It's definitely something I struggle with because I always want to I think about econ a lot when I play. And I'm always like, oh, maybe I can pull this back and win econ. Or if like Balzar takes damage early. I was talking with James earlier. I had a game against Vexer where recently in Turtle Panic where Balzar took massive damage early. He like slingshotted a biter up with a bunch of wrench rats on it and detonated in my face, and I was at like 7 health. And so I was like pulled Balzar back because Reach of Sand Goblins is insane.
Yeah, yeah, I don't like that matchup actually. It's definitely depressing if that happens, but yeah, in that case, I kind of used to do the same thing, but at some point I realized sometimes when your chips are down, it just means you have to take even bigger risks as Obsidian Dwarves, and that might be like just hoping they don't have a card that you would hate them to have. It might be hoping you roll perfectly. It might be hoping they roll like shit. The different like the different ways you can take risks can vary, but when I'm down, I'm gonna play even more risky generally as Obsidian Dwarves. Not in general necessarily, but as Obsidian Dwarves, that's what I'll do.
It's just kind of refreshing because like we talked to a lot of the other top players and they'll say the opposite things, but they've also said they might struggle with the Obsidian Dwarves, so it kind of makes sense, you know.
Might be a bit of a different mindset. I mean, you can't remember Volcor though. Honestly, also like in one of the other Tournament of Champions games I won against Prophet Sand Goblins, we kind of had a similar situation play out. I think Aaron, where like Volcor I got damaged early. Probably wasn't happening for the Volcanic Blast win, but Volcor ended up winning that one too. So Volcor can be a real like alternate plan. If that can happen, then you can get back in it also. So I think there is room for conservative play. The draw order has to be right.
And like you said, that's gonna be like your champions are kind of your plan B then in a way, and especially Volcor, because at least Devura is still on plan A, the summoner plan.
Yeah, even Volcor like can be part of my plan A. Like he just having that hard hitter go up like advance the board with Balzar, like it can be nice. So as I said, like I love to play those two every game, but if the game isn't long enough, then I won't always be doing that. And those really long games, that's when like you're gonna need Volcor if you're gonna have any hope of winning, I think.
So you mentioned Sand Goblins being a tough matchup. What do you think are the toughest matchups for Obsidian Dwarves to face?
Oh geez, Fallen Kingdom was mine. That's the way I felt anyway. And then when I went and checked my stats, I unfortunately I didn't like record them or anything 'cause I'm past the 1,000 thing. But I definitely remember like every time I checked my stats, Fallen Kingdom was always at the top of the list for my worst win rate. And I'm always open to the idea that there's something I'm missing with the matchup. Like even someone who's played them less, they might just have some insights into the matchup that I don't have. But Fallen Kingdom has a lot of things that Balzar's Plan A doesn't like. So I think that stood out to me as a bad matchup. Sand Goblins is the other one I didn't like.
Yeah, Purge and Blood Summon can really punish Balzar.
There's a lot of ways for them to get damage through guards, blood summon, and purge. Yeah, you just can't take the risks you want to take. The great thing is that all three champions are really good against Fallen Kingdom, and they can actually like win the longer game, kind of similar to Fungal Dwarves, but it's harder than Fungal Dwarves by a long shot. I think. Like Fungal Dwarves, we talked about it before, but I think Fungal Dwarves is. I don't know. I could see it either way, but
Where do you think the Tundra Orc matchup falls? Because me and Purse Warden were saying we think Tundra Orcs are favored, actually.
yeah, I think Tundra Orcs are favored. I do feel that way. When I checked my stats, it didn't back it up as much as I thought it would. Like I was doing pretty good against Tundra Orcs, but you know, stats are prone to a million things. So going off my game sense, I feel like Tundra Orcs are a hard matchup for Obsidian Dwarves.
Just because, like, it just seems like it's hard for you to take the same risks, and then you can get hit by For Glory or Brutal Force and just knocked around a bit if you're not careful, right?
Yeah, that's probably a big part of it. The summoner's HP is a part of it. I haven't like delved too deeply into thinking about the matchup, but that's definitely an impression I came away with very early. Like that's one of the first matchups. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I think Tundra Orcs is really hard.
What cards overall do you normally discard for Magic? You talked a little bit about like champs and commons, but events, champs, and commons, like which cards are you the first ones to discard?
I'm discarding Hellforge Chains if I don't have an immediate use for it. That's pretty easy to do, especially since if I need it back, I can use my forge. The axes I'll discard if I need the magic or if I don't have immediate use for them again. The axe is good though. The other events are, yeah, I mean, like Willpower and Volcanic Blast are just so obviously good. I'll discard one copy of Volcanic Blast if I draw two in the early game. Sometimes I'd rather find a way to use it though, but just clogging my hand for the whole game isn't cool.
Yeah.
So there have been times where I had to discard it. The other time I might discard a Volcanic Blast is if Balzar's so damaged that I've pivoted to a different win route. But even those games, it's like there have been times where I held on to two Volcanic Blasts against all odds and it ended up winning the game. So I'm very hesitant to discard Volcanic Blast. Willpower is kind of like an obviously never discard card. It's just so harmless to play, even if it's not the ideal turn for it.
Do you usually just play Willpower right away almost every time, or do you ever hold on to it?
Almost. I have held on to it for like a really explosive next turn if I have a reason to expect that to be the case. But that's so rare. Usually rather have the new card, I think. And then plus it just gives you the immediate benefits, multiple immediate benefits ideally. It's a very easy event to play immediately, but I've seen some people say they always play it immediately. I wouldn't say literally always, but close enough that I'm not going to argue with anyone.
So probably at least 90% of the time, you'd say.
90% easy, yeah. Yeah, we talked about the commons, berserkers. Yeah, they're two magic, so it's like you kind of want to discard them just because they compete with the champions alone. That alone will make me discard them, aside from the fact that they often aren't what I need, but sometimes they're what I need. I'll play berserkers sometimes, demons sometimes, guards I'll discard sometimes. Bloodsworn I'll very rarely discard. I don't. I'm trying to think of like when I've discarded them, and I can't. They're called Osworn, aren't they? Yeah, Osworn.
But their ability is called Blood Bond. I love that unit.
It's a good unit.
You mentioned you've been playing a little bit of Groach lately. Do you like the Blood Bond ability on Kalik, their champion?
Maybe I should, but I don't really use it that much. No, I think that's the champion I've used the least. I don't know. Like I'm starting to really not like the Elder as much. So maybe I'll start to play Kalik more. But really, their other cards are kind of like what I focus on. So I like to save my magic for my other stuff. So that yeah, the Kalik I haven't done too much of. Like I think I've played 1 or 2 games.
Well, you played a lot of games overall. Most of your games have been with the Instinct factions, Mount Vargrath, Tundra Orcs, Obsidian Dwarves. Do you know roughly how many games you played total, or with each faction even? Or
I used to, but not anymore because I used to log them through like the BG Stats app. If you guys know that one, that's before like I realized there was such like robust reporting on the online app, and maybe there wasn't at the time when I first started, but since then because of the 1,000 game cap, no, I haven't really been keeping track. So it's well over 1,000 for sure. I might have cleared the 2,000. I probably cleared 2,000. It's like I don't really know for sure. But yeah, I remember Water D mentioned something about me playing Instinct factions. That's actually like coincidental. I guess it shows kind of like the coolness of the designs though. That like each one is like a theme with like specific like design principles, and they happen to appeal to me. But it's not like I'm actually signing up to play every Instinct faction that comes out.
Yeah, because I know I brought up why you hadn't played the Cave Goblins. You're like, I didn't like them that much.
Yeah, totally an accident. Like, I mean, from now on, now that I know I like Instinct factions, I'm definitely going to pay more attention if I see those horns come out again. Yeah, I just like the Tundra Orcs, and then I like the Obsidian Dwarves even more. I do tend to like aggressive factions, I guess. I do play pretty aggressively, but yeah, like Deepwood Groaks have nothing to do with Instinct. So
and they're not as aggressive. I was actually surprised when I saw you playing them.
the very first faction I actually tried to stick with was Polar Dwarves. That was like probably before any of you knew me, but I probably played about 50 games with Polar Dwarves before the starter set came out. That was like the faction I was trying to main originally. At that time, I would say I liked the game a lot. One of the best things about an asymmetric game to me is just like there's so many different ways to enjoy the game. I can increase my enjoyment just by switching the faction. So once I found a Tundra Orc, that's when this became my number one game. And I like Obsidian Dwarves even more than that. And Deepwood Groaks is probably on the same level. It's definitely not just Instinct factions for me. It's just I like what I like.
I think it's interesting you'll kind of hone in on one deck at a time. Do you think you'll ever play in one of the plaid hat tourneys where you have 4 factions? Like now that you've got 4 factions that you kind of liked at one point in time, or are you just kind of like, I'm done with Tundra Orcs, I'm done with Mountain Vargath, I won't play in that tournament.
I might I'm not done with Tundra Orcs. It's at this point I'd be more concerned with like disappointing myself because I played them so much and I knew every matchup so intricately. I feel like I was maybe a little bit better with them than I was with the Obsidian Dwarves even. But at this point it's been so long that I don't know, it's kind of depressing to have to like not start over, but and there's a lot of matchups I don't even know now.
Yeah. It's about 10 matchups that you haven't played with them probably. And then the thing that was, I remember just trying to play against your Tundra Orcs with my breakers and just hitting a wall and just being like, I don't know how to stop these guys. And you just go in so hard. It's like and I was trying to like go outside my comfort zone myself and play the breakers a bit. It's like, okay, I'm gonna try to defend and play the long games. Like, nope, you don't have time for that.
Yeah, you seem to really like the Tundra Orcs too, though, right? Yeah, I think I've noticed you play them a lot, and I think is your avatar a Tundra Orc? I forget.
Yeah, for sure. It was a smasher for a long time, but now that Brub is an option, it became Brub.
Brub's your baby, right? Over in deck building land.
Yeah. Yeah, in deck building land. Do you think you'll ever give that a shot, or is it just like, nah?
Oh, no way. That's definitely not my thing. Nothing against it for anyone who enjoys it, of course, but one of the things I like about Summoner Wars is just being able to pick a faction and play and learn the matchups. Yeah, like honestly, like matchup, that's kind of what I like that's one of the things that draws me to asymmetric games, just like learning the different matchups and stuff. And that's kind of why I like to stick to less factions too. It makes it more manageable to actually like learn about the matchups. Like I can play like I've played Obsidian Dwarves versus Tundra Orcs like a lot of times versus like if I played every faction, I might have like experience with each matchup like once or twice. And I really love like learning more about each matchup. That's like how I like to explore the game, like getting deep into each matchup. Because of that, deck building is automatically not as much my cup of tea.
I like the deck building aspect because you can turn something like the deck I have is really like a mixture of Tundra Orcs and the Obsidian Dwarves, because you've got the Oathsworn kind of there doing their thing in the Tundra Orc deck, And there's not as many matchups as you would think because you're kind of like, okay, I'm up against a Blood Summon deck this time. I'm up against Fungal Dwarves, and they play a certain way in deck building that I don't think it's as crazy. But I can also understand your hesitation and desire not to go there.
I see your point, but there's other concerns too. I don't want. I know like you love duck building, so I'm not trying to like rail on it. Like there's other things I don't like about it also. It's not just the matchups, but yeah, that's a good point though. I'm sure it does kind of like you probably like see someone summoner and kind of know what to expect a lot of times, right?
Yeah, especially now that you can actually see the decks. Like, so when you playing against someone on in deck building, you can actually see what their
Oh, you
deck is
can.
too. So you can see what they're trying to do with that deck. They changed that a few patches ago. If you're playing on PC or if you're on the new app.
I think I remember that update now, but I forgot 'cause I never played deck building, so I probably just went in one year at the other. But I do remember that in the change log now, and that would be like a good change for me if I weren't against it for like other reasons.
Yeah, deck building's not as intimidating as it seems, but you can't jump into it as quickly as like you like to do with the base decks of just like, I'm just gonna quick play a bunch of games.
I still think it's cool that how you hone in on a few decks because a lot of people will just like play all the decks and just not really be as well known for doing one thing or the other.
Kind of specific in what I like too. So, like I said, I probably enjoy the game like 5 times more playing as Tundra Orcs or Obsidian Dwarves or Deepwood Groaks than I would playing a lot of the other factions. And I always give them a try when they come out, you know. And I always know like I'm experienced enough with games in general to kind of know what I like. So it's really quickly for me to like be like, all right, this is a faction I want to explore more. And I'm definitely open to the idea. So it's not like I had like a Tundra Orc tattoo. I like what I like, and I expect to like more factions as they come out. I'm really excited for the upcoming Resolve and Instinct, or not? No, Resolve and Cunning. I really want to see what that combination is like.
I think I'm gonna make a prediction. I think you will like the Shimmer Sea Fae.
Yeah, I might actually. I was curious about them. Their Instinct. That's a bonus point probably, just based on like how things have gone so far.
It's actually water and light.
Yeah, you're
They
right.
have the water from TO.
They did seem to have like an aggressive tone to them, and their abilities so far seem like simplistic, which I do like. I do like that. I like being able to do a lot with simplicity rather than like being attacked by walls of text.
Yeah, they're very aggressive, which is why I think you might enjoy them. Did you try the Forged at all yet?
Not really, but playing against them, I know I won't like them. I tend to be aggressive because of the factions I've played, but like Jack Six noticed, I'm not always aggressive. It's more like the types of aggression that those two factions had that kind of spoke to me. But in many games, I often kind of like a defensive faction as well. So the reason I'm saying that is I was just like wondering if that's why you asked me about the Forged. I don't even want to play them honestly. Like
Yeah, that's
just from
fair.
playing against them, like they're not that interesting to me. I thought it was a cool when I read about it though. Like not cool like I wanted to play it, but cool that it would exist in the game. When I read like it was just going to be a guy running around building structures, like I was like that sounds really unique and cool. I'm glad it's in the game, and that's one of the best thing about asymmetrical games, especially Summoner Wars. Like even if a faction comes out that you don't want to play, it's like increasing your game too. So even if I just play Obsidian Dwarves and Tundra Orcs, I'm still excited for a new guy or a new team that I'm not going to want to play. It's a new matchup I can play against. And as long as it's not Crimson Order, I'll probably.
Did you ever play fighting games too?
Yeah, that's like one of the only video games I played at some point. Like, I grew up on video games, but at some point when I got more into board games, like fighting games was kind of like the only thing I retained. And I love fighting games. Yeah, good guess.
I was just saying because it seems like the same kind of thing where you'd main a character and like new characters would just give you cool new matchups to try even if you're just sticking to one character or whatever.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like I said, it's also like a learning tool, even more so there. Like any game I play that's asymmetric, I kind of like to stick with one thing until I feel like I have a good grasp of the game in general, and then kind of branch out. I learn better that way personally. And with fighting games, it's definitely even more necessary in a way because there's a lot to practice about each character. So that might be part of why yeah, my background is like fighting games and RTS, is on the video game side. So maybe that's part of why I approach board games that way as well. They both kind of have that same element I just talked about, where it's like you're going to impede your learning a lot when you switch factions a lot in those games. In board games, it's more doable, but I still carried that like kind of attitude with me.
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple people in the community who really enjoy fighting games. I know Wardy's mentioned them a couple times.
I think Donkey too.
Yeah, I think Donkey liked them. Yeah, there's a couple people I think in the community, there's underlying just fighting game community under the Summoner Wars community.
Oh yeah, Water D, like yeah, I'm familiar with him from other games as well, and yeah, I feel like a lot of his tastes are similar to mine.
I remember he compared Obsidian Dwarves to like Zangief. Is what thing that stuck in my mind.
Yeah, I saw him do that, but I made that comparison first. You can search the chat and see, but it's a good comparison. I think I agree with it.
Have you ever played the game For Honor? It's like a sort of a fighting game mix.
No, I haven't heard of that. What's that?
So it was made by Ubisoft, and it's a fighting game, but it's more of like an open battlefield than like a like 2-dimensional like flat battlefield. So like there's a bunch of different characters from different. It's like medieval combat. So there's like a knight faction, a Viking faction, and like a samurai faction, and like 4 or 5 different characters with each, and they all have different like move sets and fighting styles. Like a fighting game, you're like running around an actual like map and like dodging on an actual map, more of like a Soul Calibur sort of, but like there's other game modes like domination and stuff like that, and like 4v4 and
Oh, sick. Yes. You have to spell that for me. After the chat, send me a message with that. That's
yeah,
sounds
I
cool.
can shoot you it.
Thanks. But yeah, the grappler comparison for Obsidian Doors, I do think fits like perfectly. Yeah, you're trying to you're aggressive, but like I said, like in a controlled way where you're trying to really kind of limit the opponent's options and get them into your kill zone and then kill them without much they can do. Because savvy players are always going to be running from Obsidian Dwarves, so you can't really win that easily without limiting their options and getting them into like that kind of corner. And that's so much like a grappler in a fighting game. So, which is ironic because I definitely hate that archetype in fighting games. Like, you'll never see me play Zangief.
When I tried to play, I'm not very good at fighting games. When I tried to play a bit, I was playing like Chun-Li a lot. That's where I was landing.
Yeah, Chun Li and SF2 here. If I don't really like the newer iterations of Chun Li that much.
It was like HD remix, Street Fighter.
HD remix. Okay, that's the one where they yeah they butchered Chun Li.
I just remember like running in and trying to like throw people a lot and do the lightning kick and stay low on the ground. And
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. I love the damage. So much damage. That's what I like about Street Fighter 2. I didn't want to take it too much off topic of Summoner Wars, but I feel like honestly, like games like that are kind of like the reason I'm playing Summoner Wars because they kind of helped forge my game tastes to be this kind of game, like one-on-one, asymmetric.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us, or a fair bit of us, are at an age where we probably grew up playing Street Fighter 2 and other games like that. So I think it's relevant.
Is Street Fighter 2 your favorite fighting game, or what would be your favorite one?
My favorite would probably be like a tier list, more than like a ranking, probably. So yeah, Street Fighter 2 I would say is top tier. I like the simplicity. I don't really like all the complicated systems that are in like a lot of the newer fighters. Like I like something about it, probably like any good fighting game, but really it's like the simpler ones that got me into it and I love. I think the new Killer Instinct is really good. Well, it's not new anymore, I guess. I mean the not old Killer Instinct. I like one that came out recently that I really liked was Fantasy Strike. It was like a simplified controls, which I really appreciated. Even though I'm pretty good at the controls in fighting games just through sheer practice, I feel like it's not the most interesting part of the game to me. So I do like fighting games. I do like the modern movement to kind of like make the inputs more accessible, so it's not so hard for people to get into, and not so much of the game is just about having practiced more.
Execution.
Yeah, I like the Marvel vs. Capcom games. They're just a lot of fun too, like a lot of craziness. So I like a lot of different types of fighters, but Street Fighter 2 definitely top tier.
Have you guys, either of you, ever played BattleCon?
Oh yeah, I've played BattleCon.
I've not, but it's like the card game that's trying to replicate fighting games, sort of.
Yeah, I just remembered that it exists. My brother used to have a copy. But yeah, it's essentially like the card game that replicates fighting games. You both have a character, and your decks are different based off that. And it's like the movement that you can do, like switching places and taking steps forward and back, and then swinging at each other and stuff. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's so weird how many fighting card games there are. Like, I did not expect that to happen, but yeah, there's BattleCon, and then there's like 10 other ones now. That's like a whole genre. It's crazy because I mean, fighting games weren't like the biggest video game, but for some reason, there's a lot of board game fighting games. Yeah, BattleCon's so hard to play. Like, if you actually think about your turns, and there's so many characters, and it's like, I don't know, it's it's a lot.
Yeah, it's better for us to stick to Summoner Wars.
Yeah, there's nothing going on in Summoner Wars. So.
Yeah, well, like every turn of BattleCon is some like 2 times. If you really try to like play it well, it's every turn is like some like 2 times Ice Ram Glacial Shift thing.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about in BattleCon. I've probably only played like 5 games of it, but there was a lot going on.
There's too much. There's like too many characters. Like if you have all the boxes and everything, like it's like some people talk about Summoner Wars releases, but yeah, BattleCon has like 100 characters or something. I don't know.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the podcast. Is there anywhere that you want people to find you or interact with you?
No, let's just meet in a quick match. Love playing you all. I like how easy it is to get games. I like just queuing up as much as possible sometimes and keep it more low key other times. But either way, thanks for all the games, everyone, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
This has been Discard for Magic, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.